I've been trying to get this man on this program for like 2 years, and he keeps eluding me, but there he is. Hollywood star himself, Freddie Prinze Jr. on the program. This is great. Freddie, how are you?
Good, man. Good. I'm glad to finally be on your show. You've been so kind as to come to ESPN Los Angeles and do our radio show out there when I fill in from time to time. It's the only time they allow us to talk MMA, so thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yes, it's great to have you on, and you're just what the doctor ordered for us, because we just went from the Nick Lentz, BJ Penn story to talking to you. So this is great. Like, your smiling face is like medicine for my heart. It's great to have you here. So first, let me ask, did you watch UFC 240?
I did watch UFC 240. I liked 2 of the fights.
Okay.
But I think they've had some good pay-per-views lately, so it's, to live up to the last couple as far as the amount of knockouts that have been going on was going to be very, very tough. But I don't know the young man's name who had those amazing knees against the Asian kid and then put him down with the left kick. But I loved him, and I love watching Max Holloway fight.
Of course. That's Hakeem Dawodu, who we had on the show earlier today, of Canada. So he's a rising star. He had a great win over Yoshinori Horie. And it's important to know that you are watching all these cards. Like, 240 might be one that people are skipping. 239 was great. 241 is going to be great. There was Pacquiao the week before. But you go out of your way to watch. Is there one guy in particular? You're a hardcore fan. Like, let's make no mistake about this. You're a hardcore fan. Is there one guy in particular that you say, okay, no matter when, no matter how, I have to watch this guy? Who's your favorite right now?
Yeah, that's Tony Ferguson. That's super, super easy, man. The guy trains differently than anyone I've ever seen train. And I grew up with some of the best martial artists in the world since I was 3 years old. So I know when I see someone almost creating a new martial art. I mean, I grew up with Bob Wall. If you don't know who that is, I'm not going to Jalen Rose you and say, Google it. I'll tell you who that is.
Please.
That's the man that when Bruce Lee came to this country, that's the man that Bruce sought out and my godfather sought him out, so that they could train together. And that group of Bob Wall, Chuck Norris, that whole team there, those were the men that raised me. My dad was famous back in the 70s, killed himself, and because of that, a lot of the people he charmed vowed to never let that happen to me. So when I watch Tony train, it's like seeing, I call Gene LaBelle Uncle Gene. Remember the referee from Karate Kid with the mustache? The original one? He's like, are you all right, LaRusso? That's Pat, Uncle Pat. He's not my uncle, but I called him Uncle Pat. He taught me how to throw a sidekick when I was 5 years old.
Wow.
So those are the guys I grew up with here in Southern California. And when I got the chance to meet Tony, I texted him. I sent him a message on social media. I was like, hey, man, let me roll with you. And he wrote back, are you crazy? And I wrote back, well, I don't know, but let me roll with you, please. And so he was like, yeah, man, if you're willing to come down to Costa Mesa. So I went down to that old RCVD gym that he used to work out of, or whatever that company was called, and showed him what I could do. And then he put it on me. And then he gave me a nice light workout after that. And I had a great experience. But watching the way he approached, this was before he was a black belt in jiu-jitsu, seeing how he approached philosophies in jiu-jitsu that don't go against anything you've learned, but are almost, I don't even know how to explain it because I'm not as good as him and not as creative as him, but he finds new ways to get to his most dominant positions that my body just can't do. Maybe it's because his arms are as long as, a set of janitor's mops, or maybe it's because he's just that much better than everyone else. But that guy blew my mind. So he's the one I watch no matter what. I love T-City. That guy got me my blue belt
Wow.
5 or 6 years ago. Yeah, man. Like, my instructor at the Gracie Academy blew out his knee, and Brian was a brown belt then. And he took over and was kind enough. That's Alex Stewart right there. That's my man, United States Marine Corps. It's my master right there. But when he hurt his knee, his buddy Brian, who I didn't really know about then, UFC hadn't signed him yet, he was like, oh, man, I'll take over. I'll help you. And Brian's jiu-jitsu is just stupid. Like, I've never rolled with anything like that in my life. But he helped me get my blue belt, and I'm forever grateful for that.
Wow. So you got real street cred. I mean, like you said, 3 years old, you've been doing this. This is amazing. And not just in the acting world, but in our world as well. So Bob Wall was your godfather.
Yeah, man. He taught my dad how to fight. One of my dad's best friends was Muhammad Ali. And
Wow.
Ali used to always, my dad loved to box. He grew up in New York City, boxed, but wasn't very good. And Ali used to just beat his ass, just pepper him, ting, 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 and bust his face up. My dad got sick of it. He knew Bob Wall was the Hollywood guru that was teaching Steve McQueen, James Garner, all these old school actors who weren't tough, trying to teach them how to look tough. And so my dad started training with him. My dad was 6'2.5". He was a big guy. And my godfather taught him the check hook, the left hook. And so Ali and my dad, this is the craziest story. Ali and my dad are sparring at Ali's house, and they're messing around in the living room, and my dad catches him with a left hook. And Ali's like right in front of the couch, so he kind of like stumbles backwards on the couch, and he gets a bloody nose. My dad hauls ass to the bathroom, grabs the towel, comes in, wipes the blood off Ali's face, runs out of his house, jumps in his 76 Corvette Stingray, hauls ass back to Woodrow Wilson Drive in the top of the valley in the hills right there, and framed the towel. Framed the towel. Ali would call the house and scare my poor mother and be like, you tell that boy I'm gonna kill him. Tell him I'm gonna kill him. He's a dead man. He would literally scare we still have the towel. I ask my mom for it all the time. She says, you can have it when I'm dead. But it's literally framed like a war medal on
Wow.
purple crushed velvet. And it says Ali's blood. I think the date is June 16th, 1970, or 75. He had a 75 Stingray. So it was June 16th, 1975.
Wow. Did you ever hang out with Ali?
I got to meet him once as a boy, but never at like the level I got to hang out with like the Bob Walls and the Chuck Norrises. Chuck broke my rib when I was like 14 years old because I thought I was hot shit and won a karate tournament here in Southern California. I had good hands, right? And back then, a lot of Taekwondo guys didn't have good hands. So I would just get inside, score, do my business there, thought I was cool. You know, testosterone going,
Yes.
puberty just finished. I was a late bloomer and feeling myself. And we were in Tarzana, California, and my godfather and Chuck were like, Chuck, this was before Walker, Texas Ranger, before he took all the Machado brothers to Houston, Texas, and started making that show. He lived here in California. My godfather took me over there, and he had this cool little room that he would spar legends in. I mean, legends. That's where the Machados first whipped Chuck's ass and got him into jiu-jitsu. So I'm on the same wood as these guys were, and I threw out my jab, which was so nice. And he threw a round kick nicely, and it hit me in that, call it the floating rib. It's your bottom one. It feels a little softer than the rest, and I dropped like a stone. My godfather's laughing because anytime I got cocky, he would always make me humbled by someone. Uncle Pat had this, or Uncle Gene had this student named Gokor, I think, and he had just given him his own school in the late 80s. He had him whip my ass one time. Like, they always would humble me. So he catches me, I drop. They just thought they knocked the wind out of me. He wasn't trying to hurt me. He was just trying to sting me a little bit. And they get me home. I'm still hurting bad. And my godmother, Lillian, Bob's wife, God bless her, knew I was really hurt, freaked out. She's like, we can't tell Kathy. She'll get a gun and shoot you. And she would have. My mom was no joke. But those were the dudes that raised me because I didn't have a pops. So those were all the guys that had daughters. Or didn't. Chuck had sons, but he was always good to me too. But the rest of all those tough guys, they all just had daughters. So they loved having this boy who was always kind of like a sponge looking for a dad, which I was. And those men were kind enough to share their time and those lessons with me, man.
Wow, this is phenomenal stuff. These are great stories. and you also trained with the great Jean-Jacques Machado, right? Back in the day?
He was the very first jiu-jitsu instructor I ever had.
Wow.
This was another one of those moments my godfather thought would be a teaching moment. I was wrestling, and I was good for a kid, but still good. And it was the year after the Dodgers won the World Series, I think. So I think it was 89 or 90. And he had a school in Tarzana, California, at a place called the Wall Street Village, which was a shopping center my godfather owned. And he was on the second floor, all glass windows, and we go up, and I didn't even know what jiu-jitsu was, okay? Like, I never even heard of it. I heard of ninjutsu from, like, the Batman cartoon and stuff, but that was it. And so we go in there, and I see this dude, and he's got one hand. And I'm looking at him, and I'm looking at my godfather like, what? Man, I'm going to murk this guy. What are you talking about? And I don't even want to, like, get in there with him because I'm feeling good about myself, right? And then forget jujitsu. He, first of all, put me in a fireman's carry, which is a wrestling hold. If you get caught in, sucks. If you wrestle and they don't. In like 2 seconds, had me on his shoulders, spun me around like a pro wrestler and is going, which window, little junior, which window? They all call me Junior. And I literally was like Chris Tucker in what's the Jackie Chan movie where he's like, which one of y'all just kicked me? Like,
Rush
I
Hour.
didn't know what happened. Rush Hour, thank you. And then I was addicted to it. And the first thing he taught me was escaping the mount. And the second thing he taught me was the Americana. And I got kicked out of the 7th grade about 3 weeks after.
Wow.
It was experimenting.
Wow. Okay. So you clearly martial arts in your blood. You're around martial artists, legends, like you say. Did you ever consider actually becoming a prize fighter?
I mean, I had the fantasies like everyone else does, but even my fantasies required supernatural gifts for me to like execute them, right? So it would be like I would have to summon the spirit of Bruce Lee in order to win the damn fight. But as an amateur, I enjoyed it. But I'm a sweet boy, man. I'm not trying to go in there and have that kind of courage. I mean, I have dad courage. That's as far as it goes. Like, you mess with my family, then it's a problem. As far as getting in a cage where they lock the gate and the only way out is if you lose or win, that's next level stuff, man. It's funny, all these actors now are wanting to get in the cage. I pitched the Out of Work Actors Fight League to Dana White 2 years ago. 2 years ago. And if you use an acronym, it does sound awful. And yes, that's the worst acronym ever, but that's what sells the show. And he hasn't gone for it yet. But I'm way down to fight actors who think they know how to fight, and you watch their Instagram videos and their chins are sticking up as if they were looking at the sun. But I'm not trying to fight a pro fighter. That's next level athleticism, often beats technique if you get caught and surprised. And I promise, at 43 years old, I'm a lot slower than when I was 23 years old.
So when you're like, you're competing and stuff, you're just having fun, you're training, but you're also like this Hollywood heartthrob. Are there agents? Are there people telling you like, stop doing this? You can't mess up the moneymaker. Did people try to get you away from martial arts later in your life?
If they did, they never said it to my face. Like, me and those other guys, like the Paul Walkers and the Scott Kahns of the world, like, we love jujitsu. We love martial arts. We all trained. Those were the only 2 guys whose black belts I respected. A lot of actors have black belts and a lot of different martial arts, and they're not black belts. But Paul's was, I never rolled with him as a black belt, only as a brown belt, but he was legit. And a relationship that I miss very much and regret. You know how, like, when you have a friend and you're like, hey, let's go get dinner, or if you're watching the show and you're into martial arts, you're like, hey man, let's roll, let's grapple, let's spar, whatever it is, and then you kind of put it off because you know they're there and you can do it next week. I did that a lot, man. And then, a man who should have been a much closer friend just became like an acquaintance and a buddy and was gone because I didn't take advantage of that time. So there's my fatherly lesson for the day. And Scott Kahn's in Hawaii, so I can't roll jiu-jitsu with him no more. He's on Hawaii 5-0. So there's not a lot of legit dudes and girls out here. And I hate watching karate in movies because it usually sucks. And the producers are selling you on some false narrative. We had to slow down the camera speed because the actor was so fast. It's like, dude, shut up. That punch looks lame. But it is what it is, man. It's the movies. There's no fire in space, but we're all okay with that too.
So I've been dying to ask you this question, and I feel like you've been asked it before, but never on this program, so I will ask it anyway. At some point around, 10 or so years ago, I find, and I was a huge pro wrestling fan. You know where I'm going here.
Oh yeah,
and,
okay, all right.
and I find out, I think reading Meltzer or something, I'm like, Freddie Prinze Jr. is on the creative team. I was like, it's not that same, like, we're not talking about like, I know what you did last summer, Freddie Prinze Jr. I still know what you did last summer, Scooby. No, like another Freddie Prinze Jr. No, the actual Freddie Prinze Jr. is on the creative team for WWE for a couple years. How the hell did this happen?
Okay. Okay, so I was at WrestleMania. I've watched wrestling my whole life. I still watch it every single week. I was at WrestleMania for Ric Flair's retirement match in Orlando, Florida, and I was approached by some of the people who worked there who knew I was familiar with the brand, if I'd ever be willing to like talk to Vince about storylines, or talk to Stephanie about like storylines and stuff like that. And I was living in New York at the time. I said, sure. Stamford, Connecticut was just a train ride away. I jumped on the express, got there in 35 minutes, took a cab to Titan Towers, which I heard they're finally moving out of, which is crazy.
Yes.
And took a meeting with Stephanie. And at the end of my meeting, she said, would you consider writing for the shows? And I was like, what? She goes, yeah, I think my dad would really, enjoy you, because you don't just say, oh, it sucks. You say, hey, I think this is a problem, but you have solutions. And I wasn't working at the time, and I really wasn't wanting to work because Sarah and I were getting ready to have kids. And it sounded crazy enough that it was cool. And I said yes. I don't know why, but I said yes. And I went on the road every single week to every single town for every single Raw and every single SmackDown. And they started me with just low-level talent, what they considered low-level, and asked me to write promos for them, like the Brian Kendrick and guys like that. And then I worked my way up to the Big Show and wrote one for him. And then I wrote a promo for The Undertaker.
Whoa.
And The Undertaker told Vince, he said, this is the best promo I've had in like 10 years. Who wrote it? And so they said, Freddie, you're writing for Undertaker. And when the kind of juices got flowing and I started getting better and better at it, my mentor, Michael Pure Sexy Hayes from the Fabulous Freebirds, brought in the Hardy Boys. He was responsible for bringing them to the company, and his dream was to put the belt on Jeff. But it was always a no, because of his outside the ring stuff. So I took a whole different spin on it and said, let's grab onto it with both hands. Let's show the problems that Jeff has. Let's have him discuss the fact that he can't just live this black or white life. He is the gray area. And I got a lot of this just from talking to the wrestlers. Shocker, if you talk to them, they can actually give you their voice. And then if you're a good enough writer, you can write stuff for them. But yeah, having these conversations helped a lot. And that was that, I think it was 2000 whatever, when Jeff became the champion, and that whole sort of Imagi Nation promos that he was doing. That was all me writing for him, and a lot of times holding the promo cards in different parts so he would look around all crazy and be able to find his words if he needed them. We had the power go out in a stadium one time, and the camera was on a battery, thank God, and Stephanie ran in with like a green pen light, and I grabbed a glass off a table and we just shined it on him to make him look like Heath Ledger from The Joker, rest in peace. Like we had to hustle to make these things work, and he became champion, and that was sort of what I got to hang my hat on for a while. And then the second time I went back was just to help the new young talent with their acting skills, how to break down their promos. We call them monologues. They call them promos. They're speeches in the ring, basically. And I just would teach them crap from acting class. Like, we would do stupid stuff like repetition, right? This is the greatest. This was me and The Miz, who's one of my favorites. He did not like me when I got there. And repetition is an exercise where you're locked into what the other person says. So I say, hey, it's a pleasure to be on your show today, Ariel. And you go, oh, it's a pleasure to be on my show today? It's a pleasure to be on your show today. Oh, it's a pleasure. And you have to go back and forth. And the goal was to make them feel stupid so that at the end of it, they're not dead. And they realize, okay, if I screw up here, I'm safe. I'm willing to take more chances. It also shows them there's way more than one way to sell a line. There's like 20 ways to sell a line as long as you commit, right? So I'm explaining this. I go, are there any volunteers? Mike's hand goes up right away. And I know he's going to be hot and hostile. So he gets up, and I go, do you want me to start or you start? He goes, I'll start. I go, okay. And he goes, hey, I can curse on your show, right?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. He goes, what the fuck can you teach me about acting? And my eyes were like, because he's in, like he's locked in, right? And I go, what the fuck can I teach you about acting? And he goes, what the fuck can you teach me? I'll stop saying the F word now. Can you teach me about acting? I go, what can I teach you about? And we go back and forth. And with two guys, it always gets angry, like it goes up and up and up. And if it's a guy and a girl, it always gets closer and sexy, right? Because they almost kiss. No matter what, it's the weirdest exercise in the world. It always happens. And so we start yelling. And finally, when he finally breaks and he can't say the line again, he just yells something else. I kind of turn and look to everybody and I go, that was amazing. And none of you are ever going to be that good at this exercise again. So we're moving on.
Wow.
And after that moment, he and I were super cool. And I loved it there, man. They literally were like, no one wanted me there in the beginning. I remember sitting there talking to him. I was like, look, man, I'm not Robert Downey Jr., but he don't give a damn about y'all. I do. So learn what you can from me, and what you think sucks, throw it away. And by the time I left, they were very sad. They did not want your boy to leave. I didn't want to go, but we had a baby, and I heard Stone Cold Austin say on a TV show he won Father of the Year 0 times in that life, and I wanted to win Father of the Year every year. So I put in my 2 weeks, bounced, and that was a wrap.
Wow, that is unbelievable. What a great
Yeah,
story.
man.
I feel like you need to do like like
Captain Graybeard story time.
you could tell a story, my man. I mean, I'm not surprised given your line of work, but I just feel like I'm hanging on every word. So it wasn't a nightmare, because I've heard like creative team nightmare, like you're beaten down and it's like long hours and you're traveling. You actually enjoyed it?
The hours are tough, man. The hours are a tap out for sure. It's like a choke where the guy's not squeezing you hard. It's just he slowly gets tighter and tighter and tighter. And they give everyone 6 months. Like JBL used to, for the first 6 months I was there, called me 6 months because that's how long he gave me.
Wow.
And then after that, he called me Freddie. And I got to write a promo for him. And Vince rewrote it. And he was like, he has to say it this way. And tell him to say it my way, damn it. And I was like, all right. And so I go to JBL and I'm like, hey, man, Vince wants you to say it word for word like this. And so we got to work on it. And he goes, no, we don't need to work on it. I got it. I go, no, we really need to work on it. He goes, oh, I got it. So I have to go now. It's my segment. And JBL's music comes and he goes out there. And he's supposed to talk about how the government's giving him this bailout because he's rich, right? So that the crowd will hate him. And he doesn't. He does what I wrote instead. And Vince is like hitting me. He's like, God damn it, Freddie, I told you, you son of a bitch. And just screaming. I'm sitting there. I'm like, I'm sorry, man. And I don't want to throw JBL under the bus. So I go, look, I thought my promo was better. I thought the other one was too like Reaganomics 80s style. And this is more contemporary because I did it on purpose like that. And he's just drilling me. I'm like, all right, man. Okay, I'm sorry. I won't do it again. So I get thrown out of Gorilla. JBL comes backstage, totally like takes the bullet for me and tells the truth. And I think it was like a test to see what kind of a dude I was, to see like if I would throw someone under the bus to save my own ass or not. So I passed that test, and I got a lot of love from Vince after that. So then I was invited on the jet after I flew on the jet.
Oh, man. Did you ever get like hazed? Like, is there like a big hazing process early on? I know you said they called you 6 months and they didn't want you there, but did anyone do anything like really mean to you?
John Cena and I were the only ones who really didn't get along. Like
Wow.
It got to the point where, and I respect what John brought to WWE. He had to hold that company on his shoulders during the PG era when no one else wanted to. That could have been Hunter. But he didn't want that cross. He wanted to be more rated R and do the stuff he liked to do. John took that upon himself. So for that, wrestling fans should be grateful because it's what made the company enough money to go in the direction that hopefully we all want it to go in. But we did not get along, and he did not like that I was there. I think he called me Ashton Kutcher for like the first 3 months I was there, and walked into one of the acting classes in the middle of it and just sat down in the middle of the class. And in between the two wrestlers. And I go, yo, man, let me talk to you outside for a minute.
Oh.
He comes outside, and I'm not one to have like confrontation with some, giant musclehead dude, but I'm not going to take shit off anybody, or otherwise you're dead at that company. So we go outside. I'm like, look, bro, you're not in this class because you know how to do this, but you don't want to teach these guys or girls shit. So let me do my job. Let me do what Vince wants me. I'd say Vince's name so he knows. I said, let me do what Vince wants me to do and just stay out of here. And to his credit, he goes, look, I know I approach this stuff in a barbaric sort of way, but you either got it or you don't. I said, dude, you're right about that. But you can get better or worse depending on the type of instruction you have. And do you want them to have instruction from Vince in the promo class or from me? And to give you an example of Vince's promo classes, he had Wade Barrett and Sheamus stand up in front of every wrestler, every producer, that's ex-wrestler, like agent, choreographer, whatever you want to call him, everyone in the company in this boardroom. And he looks at them both and he goes, you're a dog and you're a dog. Now make me want to watch you fight. And the room is dead quiet. No one could say anything. It's so quiet that after a full minute, Sheamus says accidentally, I think I'm having an out-of-body experience. Doesn't know he said it. The whole room goes crazy. Vince yells, you're a dog. Both of them get quiet again. Wade Barrett, God bless him, is the courageous one in this instance, and he starts first. But after the second you're a dog, he thought he was supposed to be a dog. So he barked.
Oh.
Vince jumps up, flips a table over that has all the Monday Night Raw scripts on it with like 6 people's scripts, protein drinks that he drinks all day long, his protein bars that are laid out. Everything flies off the table. He goes, ah! damn it, storms out. I go up to Vince after. I say, hey, man, maybe I could take over the promo class because I think I could speak that language that you're speaking and then translate it to them. Because you're using terms like razzle dazzle, and they just don't know what that means. And he handed me the promo class, and that's where we started the repetition stuff and a bunch of other crap that I won't bore you with. But I have so much love for those guys and girls. I always will. I still have relationships with a lot of them. They mean a lot to me, and they're the most blue collar people that I've ever had the privilege of being in business with. You know, actors just aren't that blue collar. Producers certainly are not blue collar, but wrestlers are the most blue collar people. Even John, the most blue collar people I ever worked with.
True or false, you cannot sneeze in front of Vince McMahon. He views it as a sign of weakness. Is that true?
Not weakness, but he hates germs and he finds it disgusting. So it's not a sign of weakness. He's not this alpha personality that everybody thinks. He's an omega personality. Like, the best way to figure this out, alpha, beta, omega. That's not an dumb actor telling you stuff. That's Sigmund Freud.
Sure.
And everybody possesses all three, but there's a dominant trait. And the easiest way to tell which one someone is to compliment or criticize them. If you compliment Kobe Bryant, he is an alpha personality. Kobe, you're the best. Yeah, I know. Kobe, you suck. Yeah, whatever. He doesn't care. He's already made a decision how he feels about himself. The beta personality, now that's more actors, musicians, artists. That's very susceptible to compliments and criticism. So you say, Sally Field, you like me. You really like me, when she won an Academy Award. Like, she didn't know she was already great before that? That's insane. But most actors are like that. A lot of basketball players you'll see is a lot of passive aggressiveness is associated with the beta. And the omega personality, which is what Vince is the long-term thinker. Vince, WWE's the best, or Kobe's the alpha. Vince, WWE's the best. What does he want from me? That's all they think about. You're not affecting how they feel about the product. They simply want to know what you want. They're only thinking end game. And that's what Vince is. He works backwards. We write the show from WrestleMania backwards. Here are the 4 matches that I want. Get me there. And we would be like, all right, and give it our best shot.
Fascinating stuff. Now, I feel like you're the perfect person to ask this question, considering your background in that world and considering your background in the world of acting as well. One thing that bothers me about the UFC today is that everyone looks the same. Everyone dresses the same. They wear uniforms. There's too many events. They go week to week. We can't tell stories. We can't tell who these people are. When you watch it, do you feel like you need to be emotionally invested in these guys, right, in their journey, in these females? Do you feel like that's a problem in MMA these days?
I mean, there's definitely something to that, because my favorite fighters are really the ones I know personally. You don't get a big opportunity to learn about the fighters unless they're on shows like this. Why do you have me on? You should be getting to know a UFC fighter right now. But once they sign that Reebok deal, you know, a lot of these people just can't get their personality over. Like Angie Hill, right? Overkill Hill.
Yeah.
She's a cosplayer. She's a friend of mine. We got big love for her. And her cosplay at the weigh-ins is heavily limited. Like, all she can really do now is face paint because of all these rules of what you can and can't wear. So it's very hard for the fighters to get anything over but fighting. Now, you may have a lot of fans that go, well, that's the way it should be. But I don't know if that's how you grow the sport. And ESPN should know better. But we need to be patient, because ESPN is very new to the MMA game. I know a lot of people have problems with it. I do too. But they've signed you. They have other people who aren't just intelligent on fighting but aren't grossed out by it. They still have a few anchors who are grossed out by it, which I don't know why they would help them sell the sport, but they make them do that. But give them time. It's a massive company, which at least buys you time to get it right. And I think they will eventually, but they're definitely, you have to sort of be a star in the ring for the UFC to sell you right now. You don't have the opportunity to build up anything outside the ring except Ben Askren, and then he got obliterated. But I think the way he handled it, you can't really humiliate him too much with it anymore. He's just gonna go and fight and have his UFC career.
Can you send my best to Buffy? My wife is a big Buffy fan. Can you tell her we say hello?
I will.
Yes.
I definitely will send her some love. I just dropped my kid off at camp, and someone had a dog with a service vest on it, and it had a steak on one side, and on the other side it said Buffy's Beast. So I know she still gets mad love all over the world.
Yes.
When we went on our honeymoon in Bali almost 20 years ago, a random taxi driver that we had who didn't even speak English was like, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Like, he was all in. I've never
Wow.
seen an episode, but I hear it's great.
And really never? Is that true? I don't believe you.
I swear. I saw part of the musical number because I had a buddy doing a part in it, this tap dancer, Hitting Battles, who was really good friends with Dule Hill from She's All That, who's on Suits. And he's a good friend of mine, world-class tap dancer. He's like, yo, you got to check out Hidden Battles. So I watched him. He played the devil in an episode, but I wasn't the demographic, man.
Fair enough.
You know what I mean? I was watching live sports and playing video games.
Okay, last one. It's the most important one. Fact or fiction? I still know what you did last summer is better than I know what you did last summer.
Fiction? Is that a thing? That's fiction, bro.
I feel that way.
The first one is way better.
Okay.
The original cast kills. Muse Watson is the solo killer. Not I think it was Matthew Settle played the other son in the second one. That doesn't hold up as well as the first one. First,
Okay.
I know you did last summer all day. Don't believe the hype. James Wan is not doing that pilot internet.
Oh.
Deal with it.
Okay. I saw that as well. No remake. Okay. Wow. Look at you. Breaking news. I love it.
I just like hurting people's feelings.
Freddie, this has been an absolute pleasure. I'm happy we finally got to do it. I'm happy you took some time out of your schedule. Thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. Anytime you want me on your show, whenever you do the ESPN LA thing, it's an absolute honor and a privilege to be on with you guys. So thank you so much.
No, thank you, man. It's my pleasure. I have way less gray hair on the radio, so anytime you want to do it, I'm down.
Okay.
And don't forget, Uwaffle.
Yes.
It's going to be the new fight sensation.
All right.
Uwaffle.
All right. We're on that. Thank you, Freddie. All the best to you. There he is, the one and only Freddie Prinze Jr. Waffle. So last week we had Steve-O pushing it, and now we've got Freddie Prinze. Who will be on next week? Stay tuned. And for all you people who are like, why is he on? Why is he on? You see why? You see the knowledge? You see the street cred? Just trust me, okay? Hello, everyone. It's Ariel Helwani. I just came here to thank you for watching our ESPN YouTube channel. It's the best. You know what else is the best? The ESPN app. You can get highlights, analysis, all that stuff and more. And if you want premium content and live streaming sports, there's only one place for all of that. It's ESPN Plus.